I was pushed onto you by another Jason, ironically. But I really want to dive into Elevate Industries.
Yeah,
Like,
brother. Yeah.
I think that is so fascinating, and let's hear from the man himself. So, take it away, my friend.
I greatly appreciate you having me on, man. Anytime I get a chance to spread hope and love, man, I'm all about that. Yeah. So grew up in a pretty tumultuous relationship with my father. I had a very abusive relationship in my home growing up. So my dad was this yeah there was a lot of abuse. He would beat on my brother and my mom. She had lupus, immune deficiency disease. My mom was just, she was great growing up, just the hope when in the midst of the storm. I mean, we talked about storms there. She was my hope in the midst of the storm. But my mom was always sick growing up, so um there was a lot of uncertainty in my home. So my dad, like I said, my dad was abusive, and that abuse, when you go through trauma, you have the ability to either get better, or you have the ability to get bitter. And usually that bitterness will cause you to repeat the cycle that goes on, what you hear about when it goes to generational curses. So my dad growing up would always, tell me how worthless I was, what a nobody I was. And then he would say one thing I never would forget. He said, one of these days you're going to be just like me. And I hated my dad for that, man. And I, I would, I never wanted to grow up and treat my family like he treated us. And so when I was 9 years old, I became suicidal and tried to take my life several times growing up, because I bought into this lie that I was going to be like my father growing up, and I assumed I would be better off dead than to grow up and treat my family in this manner. So yeah, I tried to take my life several times growing up. My mom, she had a 38 special revolver. She high powered handgun, and she hid it in her room because she didn't want one of her kids to get hurt. But I always tell people my pain led me to it. Sometimes our pain will lead us to things that we think will help us, fix us, make us better, but they only leave us more broken. It's putting a little bit of plaster on a wound that needs surgery. And so I dealt with that growing up. I would try to mask my insecurities. I would try to mask my failures. I would try to mask my trauma that my father had caused, and wore this invisible mask. Obviously with COVID going on, people, they hear mask and they think of something completely different, but I'm talking about a figurative mask that all of us wear, because we don't want people to see the real us. We don't want people to see who we really are. So we learn to mask who we really are. And that causes us to do things that we never would have normally done. And people don't know who the real us is. And we really don't know who the real us is, because we're living this false identity. And so growing up, yeah, I dealt with a lot of insecurities, a lot of this trauma. And when I was 13, my parents split up, and my mom knew that we needed to get away, or she was going to have, not have a son anymore, because like I said, I had tried to commit suicide several times. So we were, my dad had a lot of money growing up, and he always tried to control people and things with this money. And so when we left, like my mom, like I said, she was disabled most of my life due to lupus, and we were on disability. So we went from living in a $2 million home to being homeless almost overnight, and we were pretty much homeless, living out of a motel for about about 6 months. And during that time, man, I did a lot of soul searching, and there was a lot of dark moments, man, in that time frame, of which I tried to, commit suicide again. And this time was different because I went to the top of a 4-story parking garage and I was going to jump off. And my mom growing up, like I said, she was always my hope and faith before I really knew, you know, I didn't believe in God growing up because I was always skeptic in the fact that if God was real, why would I be going through this hell that I'm going through? And my mom always had a really strong faith, and she would always tell me, Jason, trust in Jesus. He loves you. He cares for you. You get off this ledge, I'll make everything okay. Or you get off this ledge, he'll make everything okay. And then when I was on that ledge, man, it's crazy to say, but that's the voice I heard in my spirit, man. It's I can't even really describe it, but it was like, hey, you get off this ledge and it's going to be okay. And so I remember, okay, I'm getting off this ledge and having this experience that I've never had before. And was everything a bed of roses? Absolutely not. But I found that year in school, I found some friends. I ended up getting connected with a mentor friend of mine that helped me sort out a lot of these traumatic instances and got me counseling and help. And then said, hey, man, you have a very unique story. Let me introduce you to this guy over here who was a motivational speaker. And you can use that story to help others. And like I said, when you go through traumatic events, you can either get bitter or you can get better. And so, like my brother, he ended up getting bitter. And that when you get bitter, you only end up hurting yourself, because that unforgiveness that you're harboring in your life, that unforgiveness turns to bitterness, and that bitterness turns to malicious acts that you end up acting out against those that never had anything to do with your pain to begin with. So that trauma is perpetuated, and the cycle continues because you don't forgive. And so my brother, in his unforgiveness, acted out and ended up getting heavily involved in drugs, and started off, smoking weed. And next thing you know, he's dropping ecstasy. And next thing you know, he's doing a little bit of cocaine over here. And then he got addicted to crystal meth, like methamphetamines. And he was a major in business, minor in music at a very reputable university. And the money he was supposed to spend on his books, he spent on drugs, and ended up failing out of the university, which led to a lot of stuff, man, where he ended up facing jail time and prison time, and a lot of crazy stuff that happened from that. But everybody in life carries baggage. I don't care who you are. It might be some serious baggage like I dealt with as a kid. It might be just some trauma that you had through a car accident, or whatever it may be. But if you don't deal with the trauma eventually deals with you. And so my whole life, man, even though once I got into motivational speaking, it wasn't until, like, I've been doing that for about 18 years now with Elevate Industries. Elevate Industries is a high school, middle school motivational assembly program where I go into public schools and prisons and talk to students about their choices, their dreams, and how they can overcome their past in order to have a successful future. That's what Elevate Industries is all about, is reaching those people in those dark moments and saying, listen, if I can make it, you can make it. There's hope. If there's hope for me, there's hope for you. But it's going to take some work. It's going to take you going into those areas in your life that you thought you shut the door on, but now that odor is starting to come through that door, and seep into all aspects of your home and your life. And so it's not easy dealing with trauma. I'm the first one to admit it. Like I said, I've been doing this for 18 years. About 6, 7 years ago, I've always dealt with nightmares from my past, and I always thought it was my cross to bear, or okay, I know this is from my past, but I don't know. I didn't really know how to overcome that, and so I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And you know, God bless my wife. We've been we've been married 18 years this November, and I wake up. I mean, I'm very open and honest with my story because even though it doesn't, nobody likes being vulnerable and real about these issues because it hurts, man. It's like someone ripping off a band-aid every time you share the story. But I know that my vulnerability is going to reach somebody and let them know it's okay. You can take off the mask, you can be vulnerable, and you can find help, and the only way for those people to find help is for me to be vulnerable. So yeah, I finally went to my wife and I was like, because I was waking up at times, shouting, and screaming and just due to the nightmares. And my wife's like, we should probably reach out to somebody that knows more than us about this issue. And so I was like, okay, I'm all up for that. So I found a licensed, let me be clear, a licensed, not just like your everyday, hey, whatever, but a licensed therapist that was able to talk to me. And I shared my story with this individual. And then at the end, they said, hey, do you care if I talk for about 5 minutes here? And I said, yeah, go for it. And I said, well, you have a severe case of PTSD. And I laughed. I was like, what? There's no way. Like, I haven't been in combat. I don't, that, thanks a lot, doc, but tell me who to make the check payable to.
Mhm.
And I'll get out of your hair here. And, and then they started telling me the steps, like, hey, and the warning signs, like, hey, hypervigilance, where like several times a night I would check to see if the doors were locked, you know, um, different things that are nightmares that reoccurring nightmares, um, not feeling safe even in your own home, and when she started explaining this to me, I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I cannot believe this. It felt like someone was like reading my mail, like spying on me. Like, I'm like, how, and she's telling me all the stuff that is accompanied with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm like, wow, and you would think that I would, and I'd been speaking at that point for like, maybe 13 years professionally. So you would think that hearing this, knowing that I have this disorder, would make me feel better, but it actually really made me go into severe depression.
Mm.
And I would close the drapes in the morning, didn't want to get out of bed. I continued on with my speaking career. I was speaking in schools, speaking in festivals. I go to Ireland every year. For the past 12 years, I've been going to Ireland and speaking over there. Went up to Edinburgh. I've been to 8 different countries, 44 different states, telling my story. And this was like basically what it came down to was, I felt like I was a failure because I was having to get help in the midst of helping others. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
So I felt like I was a failure because I was getting help in the midst of helping others. But then I had to realize, in order to be in this for the long haul, in order to help others even more, I have to continue getting help. So I think sometimes we think that life is about going from point A to point B, and then we have arrived. But I don't think we ever really arrive. I think every day we have to be what I call faithful to the process. Faithful to the process of saying, you know what, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to get out of bed today and I'm going to face the demons that are in my closet. And I'm going to win this day. And there's some days that I win and some days that I feel like I lose. But guess what? I'm a lot further on today than I was yesterday. And I'm going to face them again tomorrow. There's a speech by Theodore Roosevelt. It's my favorite speech. It's called The Man in the Arena.
Yep, I'm the same. It's my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. And it talks about it's not the critic who counts, but the man in the arena who's marred by blood and sweat and tears. That's the person that counts, not the critics, not the people in the peanut gallery that like to critique, that like to throw those peanuts and say, oh, hey, and make fun and criticize. Those people are going to be losers all of their life. And they want like misery loves company. It's true. They want that company. They want you to be a loser as well. And what's sad, it's a lot. It's not people that are strangers. It's usually the people closest to you, the people within your family, your closest friends. They start seeing you separate from the pack. They start seeing you getting better. They start seeing you succeed in life. And they are jealous of that. And so they want to judge and critique you. That's why I love that quote so much, because it's not the critic who counts. It's that man in the arena that is marred by blood, sweat, and tears that says, you know what? I'm further along than I was yesterday, and I'm going to keep pushing through. So that's what I did, man, for the next 5 years. 5 years, I sought counseling. For the first year, once a week. And then in the following years, it was like every other week, and then went down to like once a month. But I learned so much about myself, more stuff than I ever wanted to know, quite honestly. But I learned why I do what I do. I learned why I am the way I am. And you know what? Those nightmares started getting less frequent. Those things that I noticed doing. And there was a great book I read when I was in therapy. It's called Feeling Good by Dr. David Burns. Feeling Good by Dr. David Burns. This guy is a psychiatrist, and he wrote this book back in the 80s. And he basically wrote the book on cognitive therapy. I don't know if you've ever heard of cognitive therapy, but cognitive therapy, they did a study. Basically, cognitive distortions is a fancy term for lies we tell ourselves every day. You, me, everybody in this world that is human, we have cognitive distortions. And those are lies we tell ourselves. And you can Google top 10 cognitive distortions, and the top distortions will come up. The top lies that people tell themselves. You have what's called mind reading. Mind reading is when you don't like surprises, so you try to get ahead of the surprise. And let's say you have a meeting coming up, and that meeting is going to be a little bit stressful. So you try to get ahead and what's the meeting going to be about? And you start trying to think ahead, but you're actually have no idea what this person's thinking. You have no idea what the meeting's going to be about. Or let's say you get in an argument with your spouse, and you're trying to win the argument, right? Instead of just listen. And so you're trying to get ahead. You're not listening to what is said. You're trying to think of what to say in rebuttal to what this person's saying. And so you're trying to get ahead. And so mind reading, it causes depression because you're reading into what this person's thinking, and we don't know what they're thinking. Excuse me. And then you have what's called polarized thinking and black and white thinking. There's all these different distortions. Even on my Instagram, I have a stories that I've been doing. It's called Mental Health Motivational Minute, where people can read about I tell them 1 minute stories about the different distortions. But the great thing is once you identify the distortion you're doing, you can label it. You're like, oh, I'm doing polarized thinking, or, oh, I'm doing mind reading right now. You can label it, and then you can mitigate it. Okay. So a lot of your anxiety, your mental health can get so much better by just recognizing the distortion that you're doing. And, this is so helpful because they did a blind study, that these people that were on severe depression medication, they did a study and they helped them with cognitive therapy. 70% of these people that were on severe depression medication, we're not talking about a little bit of seasonal depression here or there. We're talking about severely depressed people. 70% were able to come off their depression medication because of cognitive therapy.
Wow.
So that's how powerful our mind is, But the sad thing is these doctors, like psychiatrists, and I'm not down, I don't want to, I'm not ridiculing or downplaying anybody that has.
Oh, Jace, you still there? Seems to have cut out. Damn storms.
Book, Feeling Good by David Burns. And you're going to find, wow, you're going to find how it's night and day different. Your anxiety shrinks, because you're going, I'm doing this, and you label it, and then you can mitigate the problem. And so how do we know the problem if we can't, how can we fix the problem if we don't know the problem, right? So that's what I do, man, now full time, as I go into these schools and whether it be primary or secondary schools or, prisons or, festivals during the summer camps, and tell my story and say, hey, listen, if I can make it through this, so can you. And there's a lot of great things out there, man, that can help that don't have medication attached, to it. Cognitive therapy, brain mapping, a lot of things that can help with that. But the great thing is, I didn't become like my father. That's the beauty of all this. Now I had to go through hell to get there, but I've been married to my beautiful wife for almost 18 years. I have 3 beautiful kids, one that's 10, one that's 8, one that's 4, and they're the light of my life. I've never raised a hand to them in anger. I've never done to them what my dad did to me. I broke the chain. And because I was able to get in the arena and say, you know what, I'm going to face these demons. Bring it on. Bring it on. And then I ran at it with everything inside of me, knowing that it was going to be harder than hell to get through, but I was going to do it because it was worth it. It was worth it to break that chain, that generational curse that's been in my family, dude, for generations. My grandfather, my dad's dad, he was a hateful dude, man. And you go down the line, it's like, you got to break that curse. You got to break, whether it be alcoholism, whether it be drug addiction, whether it be sexual abuse. I hear some of the craziest and most painful stories in what I do. I spoke at a school a couple of years back. A young lady came up to me. She was a junior in high school. So I don't know if that would be like 5th year where you guys are at, or about 17 years old. And she gave me, most of the times when I speak at the end of my assembly, I say, somebody loves you, somebody cares about you, and today it's me, I love you. Because the power of love, no matter what language you speak, no matter what race you are, no matter what gender you are, the power of love cuts through all of that.
Yep.
People in life, they just want to be accepted and they want to be loved. No matter where I've spoken in the world, in 8 countries that I've spoken in 44 different states, no matter what race, no matter what religion, no matter what gender, people just want to be loved and accepted. So at the end of my assembly, I say, somebody loves you, somebody cares about you. Today, it's me, I love you. This girl stands up in front of everybody else, probably 600 and something students, says, hey, I love you too. Can I have a hug? I said, sure, absolutely. She comes up front. I gave her a hug. when I gave her a hug, she just started weeping. And she handed me a note. She said, "Don't read this now, but read it when you get back to your hotel." So I opened it up and I read it later on. And this young lady, it says, "I am captain of my swim team. I'm the head cheerleader in our school. I have everything financially that my parents provide." But she says, "I tried to take my life 3 days ago." She said, "I have so much pressure on me. My parents are living vicariously through me, wanting me to perform at such a high level that I don't believe I can accomplish it or ever make them happy." She goes, "I got a 4.2, not even a 4.0, a 4.2, A pluses in all of her classes." The pressure on this girl was, heavy. So she said 3 days before I came, she put a rope around her neck and tried to hang herself. But the rope broke. And she wondered why the rope broke. And then I came to her school. She said, "In your 45-minute assembly, you made me feel how nobody else has been able to make me feel." She said, "I've been attending psychiatry meetings, meeting with my psychiatrist for the last 6 years. And in 45 minutes, you made me feel how they have never been able to make me feel. Thank you for coming to my school. You saved my life." Now, when I read that, I'm like, holy crap.
Hmm.
But it wasn't just me that helped save her life. You know, it was the years and years of me persevering through those negative times to get to where I was that day, to where I could look at her honestly and openly and say, "Somebody loves you. Somebody cares about you today. It's me. I love you. I care about you. Don't ever give up. If I can make it, you can make it." Now, if back here years ago, before I met this young lady, I would have taken a shortcut or taken the easy way out or didn't persevere through that, who's to say this young lady would have found hope that day? So I have to realize it's not just for me that I'm taking every day and going, I'm going to get in the arena and I'm going to fight and I'm going to make the best of this situation. It's for that young lady that I meet and countless others that I speak to and say, "Hey, if I can make it, you can make it. Don't ever give up." So that's me in a nutshell, man. That's Elevate Industries. I have a mental health podcast I do called the Elevate Industries Podcast. It's available on Apple, Google, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. But I've had the opportunity to interview people like Tim Kennedy, former Green Beret sniper and UFC fighter, and he has that Discovery channel, Hard to Kill. But yeah, he talked about PTSD. That's a great episode. And I also interviewed Tyrus from Fox News. So a couple of significant interviews that was able to put it out there. But yeah, man, I mean, life's painful at times, man. There's no easy way around it. There's, real life is not, there's no Disney fairy tale endings in real life, right? It takes hard work. It takes dedication. It takes commitment. My favorite, I'm a person of faith, and my favorite verse in the Bible. I understand some people are not a person of faith, and that's fine with me, but I'm a person of faith. My favorite verse in the Bible is Micah 7:8. Micah 7:8 says, "Do not gloat over me, my enemies, for though I fall, I will rise again. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord himself will be my light." And that's my life story, man. I've lived my life in darkness, but God has been my light through all of it. Times where I wanted to give up and quit and throw in the towel, he's been there for me in those times, man. My mother, before even God was, I know it was ultimately God throughout all that, but but my mom, before I even believed in God, was there fighting for me. This past year, I lost my mom. She died of a stroke, and it's actually, geez, today's the 10th. She died on the 14th, so 4 more days will be 1 year. And that was tough, man. That was tough because that woman, dude, man, you talk about the epitome of perseverance. She was that. I saw her go through so much in life, whether it be through her health, whether it be the abuse of my father or my brother, because he ended up turning into the abuser due to his drug addiction. Whatever it was, my mom was sexually abused growing up as a kid from the ages of 3 to 11. She had a rough life, man, and full of abuse, but she always looked to the positive. She never let anybody get her down. She was a fighter. She was Rocky Balboa at its finest. Her life was 1,000,000 to 1 shot, but every day she gave it her best, man. And she showed me how to fight. She was a fighter. So, yeah, man, I'm just living my life. And this podcast has enabled me to still stay out there due to COVID and all this COVID crap going on right now, that I'm just like, I'm done with it. I'm like, whatever. If I get killed by COVID, then so be it. But I'm not going to live my life afraid. I'm like, I'm just not. I'm not going to be living in fear. So, but yeah, man, that's my life, and that's what I've been doing. And you can go to elevateindustries.com. That's my website. And just trying to live my life, bringing hope to others, bringing love to others instead of pain, what my father was doing and continues to do, man. So, yeah, dude, there's so much beauty in life that life has to offer. And I want to add to that, man. I don't want to ever cause somebody pain, so that's why I do what I do.
From the bottom of my heart, mate, I just want to say thank you for sharing that story. That is absolutely stunning. And you going through all that and waking up every single day and choosing faith and choosing I'm going to put 1 foot forwards and I'm going to keep going forwards, enabled that little lady to keep going, and many, many, many more over the many talks you do over all the countries, the states, even on the podcast. Like, literally just keeping going might seem like, especially with the internet, you kind of take the personality out of people, and it seems like we're just doing all this work and you're not really getting anything out of it. But I can guarantee you there's people out there that will listen and will hear and will understand and will keep fucking going because of it.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that, man. And I appreciate you and, bringing hope where you're at. And, let's get over there to New Zealand, man. That's,
Yeah, man.
I got to tell you, dude, that's like the one country I have never been to, but there's a lot of countries I've never been to, but that's the one country I've always wanted to go to.
I'm going to write it down.
But yeah, write it down, brother. I mean, I want to come, dude. Let's get over there, get in your schools, get in your prisons, get in front of people and bring hope to them, man, because, man, yeah, that's what life's about, man. Crossing all these barriers and, whether it be time zones, whether it be race barriers, whether it be religious barriers, whatever, man. There's so many barriers out there that we as people put up in front of people. But the thing is, like I said, man, love and acceptance, that's what everybody wants. And that's what love will break through all those barriers. So
travel is a beautiful thing, man, because, I'm from the west side of Manchester, northwest of the UK, right? And you see the same faces. It's a big country. It's a big city, right? There's a lot of people there, but you see the same faces. You do the same thing, and you're like, it's because we're here that we're in the shit. And
yeah,
me getting myself up and all the way over here, literally the furthest I could travel in the entire planet. And then I was speaking to this bloke from Samoa, right? And he was mid-50s. All right. So a bit of an age gap, and well, we're very different people. And the stuff that he struggles with in his past, and also that comes up in his mental state at the moment, in the present, is exactly the fucking same. And I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. Like we could not be more different, yet we are struggling with exactly the same stuff. And it blew my mind. And I was just like, you know what? Now this needs to change, you know. And that's one of the catalysts that I ended up publishing the poetry collection on mental health, you know, and kind of throwing it out there so people can pick it up. They don't need to know who I am. They don't need to know a face. They don't need to know who wrote it. They just pick it up. Like you said, somebody loves you, somebody cares about you. And today that's me. And it's going to be picking it up. You read one and you're like, oh my God, someone understands how I feel. It's like, yes, at least there's one person. At least there's one. And you don't even need to know who it is. You know what I mean? Like there's no picture of my face. There's no nothing like that. It's like just somebody out there. Somebody cares. Somebody loves you. Yeah. Keep going.
That's awesome, man. I'm proud of you, dude. Are you you a United fan?
Yeah. I'm from West Side, so I have to be.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like in your blood. So
yeah,
I get it, dude. Soccer. Well, I shouldn't. Saying soccer is probably blasphemy
yes,
to
it
you,
is.
but football. Dude, it's picking up over here, man. So
really,
I don't know. Yeah, we got our teams they're in LA and Atlanta and Dallas and different cities are picking up different clubs and so it's picking up, man. Our kids over here, if they stop playing when they're 10, so we would be pretty good if we kept playing, but yeah. we stopped playing and when they're like 8 years old, 10 years old, and they go to American football or they go to baseball or something like that. But I love watching football, man. It's a great sport. World Cup, every time it comes around, I love watching the World Cup. I have a good buddy over in Ireland. He's a Chelsea fan, and which is probably blasphemy to you as well. But
yes, we don't talk about Chelsea.
But yeah, man, another thing I'm watching right now, not to change the topic here, but another thing I'm watching is what is that Apple original film right now about football? It's so funny, dude. It's Ted Lasso. Have you seen that, man?
Nah, man. What is it?
Ted Lasso. So Ted Lasso, it's this American the whole premise is this American football coach that goes to England to be a football coach. So he has no idea. He has no idea what he's doing. He's just this country, hick like a guy that's just like, has no idea what he's doing and goes to England and coaches football, and he's never done it in his life. But it's tremendously funny, and it's on Apple, so you got to check that out.
It's just putting ball in the back of a net, and just be really physical with it. That's all it is, and make sure you do it with your feet.
That's right. Make sure you do it with your feet. Yeah. I went to a rugby game when I was over there in Dublin once, and it's crazy to me that that's the gentleman's sport, right?
Yeah.
Over there. Because they're ripping people's ears off,
Yeah.
And then you got football that's like, the hooligan, it seems like the sport, whatever. But man, I was blown away when I was watching these rugby players, because it's not like American football where they're wearing pads. I mean, these guys don't have any pads on. They got like barely a helmet on, and they're just killing each other.
It's fun though, man.
Oh. I guarantee it is. It's fun to watch. My body, I played American football for a little bit, like, nothing anything special, just high school, but blew my ACL out. My body could not take that anymore. These guys, I cannot believe the pain they go through, man. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, but 0 to 80 minutes, you kind of have an out of body experience where no matter what happens to you, you just kind of keep going. It's the day and the 2 days after the game, like you just cannot move. It's ridiculous. Like, yeah, like
Oh my gosh.
the soreness. That's what I can't do
Great.
anymore. Like I can't do the soreness. Like I would be like I would not be able to function as a human being for like 3 days afterwards.
If you did rugby.
Yeah, if I kept playing, yeah. Like I've not played in a long time, but
Oh,
I remember in like the
uh,
height, I played for like county, which is like the equivalent of like the state over there. Played for my club and then played for like my school, and we'd have like 3 games in a week. And it was literally as soon as I finish, I'm in the ice bath, then in a hot shower, and I'm like that for half a day just to put myself back together to play again. It's ridiculous.
wow. Yeah, right. Jeez. It's nuts, man. The things we do. The things we do.
Yeah, we call it fun.
Yeah, things we do that we call fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. If you get on my Instagram, I was in Orlando this past week at a conference, and my buddy and I, we've been friends for like 20 years. Well, Orlando, of course, has all the gimmicks and the Disney and, International Drive has all these rides. They had this ride that it was called the Slingshot, and they launch you 390 feet in the air and you go 6 Gs. Okay. So my friend talks me into this, and I'm like, okay. I was scared out of my mind. I was screaming the whole time, man. And this thing launches us almost 400 feet in the air. And you're just up there in this little seat, like, hey, if this thing breaks, that's it. We're going to be on the evening news, It's just nuts. But yeah, man, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love the rides. I love doing all that stuff. But when it comes to the physical sports, man, I just can't do it anymore because, the pain it causes.
I mean, you'll love New Zealand, mate. They're dead into the adventure sports, the adrenaline stuff. Like every bridge they have over 5 meters, they've got a bungee jump on it, and it. To me, I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like I'm not jumping off that bridge. You know what I mean? But they absolutely love it over here. So when you get over it, it'll be a good match.
That's awesome, man. Are you going to continue to stay over there?
Yeah, I think so. For the foreseeable anyway, nothing in life is guaranteed, so we shall see. I do miss home, but right now opportunities are a lot more over here than they are at home, and the idea was to open a door and to bridge the gap for my inner circle back home, like my two brothers that aren't related, but I call them my two brothers, and then my two sisters, to be able to get over here. So that means I need to stay.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. Well, you know what, man? You got a friend in me now. So, stay in contact, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're ever in Wisconsin in America, hit me up.
I'd love to. I'd love to get over there, man.
So how'd you hear about me?
I got passed on by Jason Wood. We had a good chat on the old podcast, a little bit of a heart to heart. And yeah, he pushed me on, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hit him up.
That's awesome, man. Was he in a school assembly I did over there?
No, he was in he's based out of Denver. And
Denver, Colorado.
Yeah. And he basically told his story with like eating disorders from a male perspective, which is really fascinating because you only hear it from the female perspective most of the time, which again is fascinating. Yep. But it's always nice to give someone a platform to share a story.
I love Jason, man. I met Jason at a Quake. It was a conference I spoke at. Good dude, loves people. Jason, if you're listening, I love you, buddy. You keep going. He's made a lot of headway, man.
Yeah, what a guy.
Good guy. Alex, thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you, brother.
Anybody listening, check out elevateindustries.com, and also my mental health podcast, the Elevate Industries podcast, available on Apple, Google, Spotify. Stay in touch, Alex. I greatly appreciate you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, mate. Take it easy.